Welcome everyone to today's 811 PRA call on HUD Systems. This is Stacy Fox from TAC. Before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping reminders. We will have time for questions today, and you can submit them either written using the questions box that you see on your screen, or you can ask a verbal question. But if you would like to ask a verbal question, please be sure to enter your audio PIN by pressing pound, your audio PIN number, and pound on your phone's keypad, and then using the raise your hand function, and that will indicate to me to unmute you. The webinar today is being recorded, and a copy will be sent to you following the webinar. We have a few folks from HUD with us on the call today. Those include Danielle Garcia, Marvis Hayward, Katina Washington, and later on today's call, we may also be joined by some HUD staff who work on systems, and they'll likely be available for the questions portion. So today we're joined by both fiscal year 12 and fiscal year 13 grantees, and quickly those include Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, DC, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Nevada, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. So it's a big group today. We're really happy everyone can join us. And now I'm going to turn things over to Marvis, who's going to give you an overview of today's call. Marvis?
Thank you, Stacy, and hello to everyone out there in telephone land. We're happy to have you with us today for our tracks webinar, and as many of you know, originally this was going to be the day of our convening, so we decided to go ahead and have a training class in place of that while we're still working on that, and we're looking to do something perhaps later on in the fall, looking at September, so you can just kind of tentatively put that in your radar for right now, but you'll be getting more information about that. So we have lots of information to cover today, and we're going to start with Danielle Garcia, and I'll let Danielle take it from here.
All right, thanks, Marvis, and hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Today, we are going to start off by doing a PowerPoint presentation for you guys. For the new FY13 grantees, we're going to introduce a concept that if you haven't heard from other folks in the industry, what we had to do a workaround in tracks, what we're kind of calling it as a parent-child relationship. Parent meaning you as the grantee at the cooperative agreement, the money's obligated for you, so you're essentially the parent in tracks, and in for each rack you get on board, we're calling that the child. So if we can kick off the slides, you guys did get these by email. The presentation was actually going to be presented by Lanier Hilton, but he had an unexpected meeting to attend, so I'm going to cover his portion. And we're hopeful that he can join in at the end of the call to answer questions. We do have some HUD contractors on the line also as well, so if there's any technical questions, they can help with that. But pretty much today we're going to do high-level agenda, talking about the automation role, your role as the grantee, introducing again that parent-child level contract. When you're going to be requesting a rack contract number, the tenant certs you're going to transmit in tracks, and your rental assistance payments, and as well as your administrative fees that you can allot for. So, you know, big overview is that the 811 PRA, as you know, is authorized by the Frank Melville Act. Awards of rental assistance are to the state housing agencies who are forming partners with your state Medicaid and Health and Human Servicing agencies. The funds itself cover the rental assistance part and then the administrative costs. Now, for the sake of the majority of this presentation, we're going to be discussing the rental assistance part. So through the next slide, thank you. Through the automation role, rental assistance has to go through the automation role, and it must submit tenant certifications and electronic vouchers to get your tracks payment. And we're going to talk about this later on slide 10 and 11. As a state agency, you as a grantee are acting as the contract administrator to provide an oversight of the program. So this includes approving your tenant certifications and submitting electronic vouchers through TRACS. The contract administrator identification number that we've identified for the PRA program is a series of, it's 800 series, but the actual number is 802, and it's in here. And just so you know, the paper copies you guys received by email today has the series 500. If you want to mark that out, the series number should be 802. Now, this is kind of the example that we're showing you as far as your CAID. It's going to be your state abbreviation, the first 2 digits, and then the next 2 digits is actually the 802 here. So to bring in the concept of the parent level contract, it represents the cooperative agreement. This is the agreement that's entered in with HUD and you as the state housing agency for the program. As we've mentioned, the money is obligated on for you, so we have to make the payments directly to the grantees. And then this kind of gives you a big picture of all the contract number layouts that we've assigned for the 25 states. It's essentially, it's an 11-digit number, same as what, for those familiar with HUD contract numbers, still 11-digit number. You're going to have your 2 digits being your state. The pound sign, there's going to be 2 digits, and that will be assigned to you within the cooperative agreement. And then for rental assistance, it's all of them are RDD. And then the last 4 digits is 1301, which means 13, you're a fiscal year 13 grantee, and 01 is the first contract assigned under that scheme. Next slide. So you as the grantee are going to enter into a rental assistance contract with each owner. And within that RAC, that's essentially creating your child level contract, which is between you and the owners that you're executing the agreements with. So as a grantee, you will request an 11-digit RAC contract number from HUD. And the way that we're going to go through the instructions later on, but the way that we've assigned it is the parent contract. If you'll notice, this is an example for Georgia. It ends in RDD 1301. So every child, every RAC contract that you get on board will automatically increase by 1 digit. So the first RAC that you let us know that is executed, we will assign a 1302 digit. The second RAC will be a 1303 digit, and so on. Now this flowchart is pretty much what most of you, if you're familiar with TRACS, that you know how the tenant certifications are processed. It's divided into 3 boxes here. You have your property at the top. In the middle is your state agency tenant certification processing, and then at the end is your TRACS tenant certification processing. So basically, the way the tenant certifications are going to work is you will submit your certifications for each RAC, and the arrow to the right on the top box, these will get transmitted through through IMAX. And then going down, you as the state agency will review and approve each tenant certification. And then if everything checks out there, you're going to go down again at the last of the flow box and review and approve the tenant certification, then transmit these through TRACS. And this slide will be very helpful in learning about that parent-child concept. So again, if you were looking at the same 3 boxes, if you look at the top left, you're going to be, owner will still be transmitting the voucher at the RAC level. You're going to execute that and then transmit all your tenant certifications in IMAX. You as the grantee down in the middle box will review and approve each payment request. If that checks out, then to the right, you're going to combine the RAC payment request into 1 voucher. So that essentially is your parent voucher that you will be transmitting in TRACS. So the owners will not transmit individual vouchers at the child level. You will transmit 1 voucher at the parent level. Once you do that, you're going to go down to the bottom box. You will review and approve the payment request. And then going to the right, what's going to happen, and we're going to talk about this in the next presentation, but essentially your parent voucher is going to be completely blank voucher. There's going to be some property information or grantee information up at the top. And then in the miscellaneous adjustments, you will enter in an FORQ. And because there's no tenant data associated with the parent voucher, a T53 error message will automatically get generated in TRACS. And that's kind of what that box is saying. There's going to be system error getting generated. Once that happens, to the right, HUD staff will review and approve that suspended voucher, and then HUD staff will transmit the payment in locks. And administrative costs, we'll discuss this in the next presentation, but the administrative costs, you will be assigned a separate contract number from your rental assistance number. You're going to transmit your administrative cost vouchers through locks, through that second contract number, and 811 program staff at headquarters will approve those vouchers transmissions. And I think, Stacy, what we'll do is we're going to dive in the deep end of the questions about this parent-child relationship later on in this next presentation. So unless you have any written questions, I'd like to go ahead and get started on that.
No written questions, Danielle, so you can start with the Prezi.
Okay. So the Prezi presentation, what we've done is we have outlined for you in your attachments a step-by-step instructions. So hopefully you have that in front of you. And then this is a great flow chart that TAC did for us that's going to mimic those step-by-step instructions. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step in the process when you think 811 program is that we need to get an executed cooperative agreement. All of you will soon have the executed agreement, and within the cooperative agreement, you're going to be assigned 2 contract numbers. One is for rental assistance. This is an RDD number, and these particular numbers are payments that are transmitted through tracks, so those are your vouchers. And then the second contract number is administrative cost. It's a DRD number, and these types of draws are transmitted through locks. Internally, HUD does 2 things with executed agreements. We send the HUD tracks team a request to create a parent-level contract number in tracks. And second, we submit the fully executed cooperative agreement to HUD CFO office over in Fort Worth. And Fort Worth will enter in the cooperative agreement data in locks and also make sure that that contract number is obligated for the locks fund. Once the agreement is in place, there are a number of startup-related steps the grantees have to take. So the first step is setting up your direct deposit so you can be paid. You will submit a direct deposit sign-up form, which is 1199A, to HUD CFO office in Fort Worth. The instructions provide a name and email address to HUD staff in Fort Worth for the submission. And here you'll take a look at, here's the direct deposit form. To pay particular attention, right here where we zoomed in section 1F of the form, you're going to check other. And we've gotten word that HUD in Fort Worth wants you to include your rental assistance contract number and your administrative cost contract number if the same bank account is going to be used for both types of deposits. If you have different bank accounts managing your rental assistance draws and your administrative draws, then separate forms will need to be submitted to Fort Worth staff. One other step to get your administrative costs paid is completing a voice authorization form. That's form 27054. This form sets up your administrative cost contract number and locks. And you will mail this form with the original signature to Katina Washington for approval. She's here at headquarters. She's your program staff. Her address and contact information is included in the step-by-step instructions. Now, for most of you on the line, if you have done business with HUD, a locks account already exists. So when you submit your 27054, you're going to select Add New Program Area. That's box 5 at the top. And midway down, you're going to add 811A Locks Program Area. The program area 811A is for payment for administrative cost. If a locks account does not exist, you must submit the locks access form, the same form 27054, but you're going to select New User, which is box 1 of field 1, and fill out the rest of the form in its entirety and still mail the original form to Katina Washington. And it's important to stress that we do need the original form. The offices will not accept a electronic signature or emailed version of it. So all locks approving officials and users will have to register in secure systems, and the approving official must register as a coordinator and users must register as users. The instructions that we provided you give you a number of links to guides and other tools that can assist you with your ELOCs getting access. So please use the instructions in the ELOCs registration guide and pay close attention to pages 9, 12, and 20 of Appendix A. The LOCS access guidelines outlines the full process, and the ELOCs Getting Started guide is kind of a navigation tool for you to use after registration is complete. So next, for those of you that are not a current PBCA, then you must obtain a user ID in order to obtain access to HUD Secure Systems. So this includes getting access to LOCS, IMACs, IREMs, EIV, and tracks. You are also required to accept the rules of behavior and complete the security awareness training. There's also security information in Section 4 in Chapter 9 of the 4350.3 handbook. The instructions provide you with a number of useful HUD sites, and in particular, I want to bring you to this particular site here to your attention. It's a great tool to, oops, I got a blank screen, but it's a great tool to have kind of your go-to link for multifamily online systems. You can look up information about the systems, and they're also a login hyperlink to access your EIV tracks and IREMs. So brings us to EIV. You're going to need access to your EIV system, and within the instructions of the step-by-step, that indicates how you can get access if you don't already have access. So generally, just thinking about getting access, getting started, is there any questions on the line related to that?
Give me just 1 second, Danielle, and I'll check.
There is one question, a question about must one use the phone for the LOCS program?
What was the question? I'm sorry, Lisa.
For the LOCS system, do you have to use the phone? Is it only a phone-based system?
Right. No, you do not. The LOCS is an ELOC system. I believe that the voice authorization is actually going away pretty soon. The reason why you're having to fill out the 27054, that's the only form we have to add the 811A program area. So just disregard the title, but we are using ELOCs for the program.
Okay, thank you. Another question, I don't know if you want to answer now or take later. One of the grantees says that their tracks experienced staff are concerned about the length of time to correct the error in the voucher, and that this will create delay in the processing payments. Do you have a timeline to approve vouchers that have that fatal error, which will be all the vouchers, right? It's the way you've built the system, or the workaround.
Right. That's a very good question. Right now, the way the roles have been assigned is a staff member at HUD headquarters will be releasing the T53 error, so there should not be a lag time with processing your vouchers.
Great. Thank you very much. I think that's it for written questions right now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. So the next process when you, after you're all set up with systems, is putting a rack in place. All of the steps so far has been your general startup. Once you have an eligible property with which you want to sign a rack, you're going to need to take several other actions. So in your instructions, I'm now on step 5 of the step-by-step instructions. And in order for an owner agent information to populate in IREMs, the organization must register in HUD's Multifamily Business Partners Registration website. Here's the link for you, the one to the left. Therefore, if an owner has not done business with HUD, the organization registers via Business Partners Registration website. So just keep in mind this is very different from the normal previous participation clearance process, which is the HUD 2530 form. Our owners do not have to fill out the form. They simply need to put in their TIN number in this Business Partners Registration site. And once that happens, it'll interface with IREMs, and then the owner information IREMs will populate. And the next part we will discuss is step 6 of the step-by-step instructions. So once you have your owner who's very excited and eager to participate in the program, the first coordination that you're going to want to do with HUD is request a RAC child level contract number. You're going to do this by by using form to request a RAC contract number, which is this form in front. Each RAC will be given the child contract number, while the grantee will have the parent contract number. So once you receive your child contract number, it can be used to execute your RAC or ARAC. So you would want to do this step before you actually execute a RAC. So once you get the number from HUD, you coordinate with the owner, you execute the RAC, and then you will need to email the executed RAC and rent schedule, which is form 92458, to PRA contracts@hud.gov. So this here is the screen of your rent schedule. You will do this parallel with executing the RAC, and then for each rent adjustment thereafter, which is annual, you will execute another rent schedule approving the rents for that particular rent adjustment for that owner. So going back to submitting these executed documents to HUD, this is a very, very important step we want to stress. If HUD does not receive the executed documents, then the owner cannot transmit the tenant data and tracks, and the grantee cannot include this RAC or child contract on your parent voucher. Once these have been submitted, according to the instructions described, the actions HUD will take internally to create the RAC and child contract in HUD Systems. So within the instructions, we've detailed what HUD will do internally. You will also have to obtain a Trax mail identification number to submit the tenant certifications and electronic vouchers for payment. I am now in step 10 of the step-by-step instructions, and prior to the grantee transmitting the first co-op parent level voucher for rental assistance, the grantee must coordinate with HUD to agree on a cutover date. This date is entered into ELOCs by the grantee, and here's a print screen over to the left of your CFO Financial Systems page. This has clear instructions of what you need to do for those not familiar with it. The cutover date is the date that the grantee will assume responsibility for making payment for the first RAC child contract. This is essentially going to be the month that the grantee is transmitting the first co-op parent voucher. So the cutover date will initially be blank for the co-op parent rental assistance contract number in lots, and the grantee must manually enter the cutover date in month-year format. And this is done in the contract detail screen in ELOCs. The cutover date does need to be approved by HUD before the entry becomes effective. So you would reach out to your program staff, agree on the date whenever you're planning to submit your first parent voucher. You will then enter it into your ELOC system, and then HUD program staff would get a message and have to approve that date. So once you've completed these particular tasks, now you're ready to transmit your voucher. And we are about to start on step 12 of the step-by-step instructions. So once you're ready to transmit your first parent co-op voucher, the grantee will email HUD, that's Katina Washington, Marvis Hayward, and Flossie Ramiro, a paper voucher of each RAC and child contract. HUD will not release payment of the co-op and parent voucher until HUD receives the parent voucher for each RAC child contract. Now this particular step is only going to be required for the first 3 parent voucher transmissions, and we can periodically ask for a copy of the parent voucher at our discretion. Basically, this is a new program. It's a foreign concept in Trax to transmit this child-parent relationship, so we're going to do a quality control check to make sure that you as the parent, as the grantee, are requesting the correct amount from each executed RAC that you are transmitting payment for. So we've talked about a lot here. Before I get to the next point of discussion, do we have questions so far about the basic concept parent-child relationship?
We have some questions that go a little farther back. So let me read them to you. The parent contract number will be entered in locks. Will the Trax staff also be loading the parent and child contracts in the Trax contracts database?
Yes. Well, so once you transmit or request your child contract number, HUD will go into Trax Icon and enter in the information based on your executed documents, And once we have an executed cooperative agreement, all parent contract numbers will also be in tracks, and we will enter in that information in tracks icon so that it will be available.
Thank you. A couple of questions that are similar, I think, but a little different twist. If we're already a TCA, we have access to secure systems, do we need to sign the rules of behavior again for the 811 program? Is once enough, or do they have to resign?
I mean, I'm always erring on the safe side, so I would say resign, but this is actually, is Robert Norman on the line? Or Alyssa, do you know that answer?
I'm here, Lisa, but I don't know. We could certainly confirm that, though.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll get back to folks on that. In a sort of a similar vein, I think, if you're already a TCA or PDCA, do you need to register again with Secure Systems? So that's not about the rules of behavior, but do you need a new ID?
Right. That's a very good question. So what we've picked up on with the current FY12 folks is if you are a TCA, you do not have access to IRMs. And so with that, you do kind of have to start at square one and get your CAID 802 assigned to you to get access. But as far as I know, Elisa, chime in here, it should be a fairly straightforward process for the rest of the systems to get access. It's the one I've seen the hiccups in have been getting access to IRMs.
It's true with the other systems as well. Yeah, the business partner relationship needs to be established with the new CAID, like you said, Danielle. But
Okay.
the existing WAS ID should still, or Secure Systems ID should still be valid.
Okay. Okay.
There are two questions about the paper vouchers. Could you please repeat how many months worth that they have to be submitted?
Sure. So once you transmit your first parent voucher, we're asking for the first 3 to get copies of each miscellaneous adjustment on the parent voucher that you're attempting to voucher for at the child level.
So for 3 months then?
3 months.
Another question. A grantee has already established a direct deposit with HUD. Do we still need to submit the 1199A form again?
You do not. If you, what we can do is coordinate with program staff, and we can run your information through the SAMS report if you are using the same banking information. So you would just coordinate that with Katina or Marvis.
Okay. Thank you. A comment from I believe, a contractor. It may be essential that the cutover date is the 1st of the month because all vouchers must be dated the 1st of the month.
Yes, that's correct.
Comment on that. Okay.
That out. Yes.
Okay.
And basically, just like that comment indicates, is the cutover date will be your first voucher that you're transmitting. So if you're transmitting May 1, that cutover date will be May 1, 2015.
Okay. And a follow-up from someone to ask the TRACS contracts database question again. Will the certifications go into TRACS if the child contract is not entered in the TRACS contracts database?
The certifications at the tenant level will go into TRACS, so that those are your 500 5.9s. The vouchers, though, HUD will not be able to see the vouchers at the child level, which is essentially why we are asking for those first 3 months transmissions and periodically thereafter.
Thank you. Someone wants to point out that one of the grantees is a TCA, but they already have access to IRMs. Is that going to work for them, or is that going to be a further complication? Or do we know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that, but once you get your executed agreement and you start requesting access, if you run into any problems, then we can work with you on an individual level. And
okay, great.
I think we've done a good job providing as much customer service as we can at headquarters. There's help desk information, that can also provide, but since this program is so new and it's not fresh on everybody's help desk guys, we have staff here at headquarters that can do a little more hand-holding if needed.
That's great. I'm sure people are going to want to take advantage of that. One of the grantees that in FY12 that has already gone through one of these RAC processes and submitted a voucher indicates that when you enter the cutover date, it does not ask for a day, just the month and year.
Good to know.
Let's see. So for California, May 1st, 2015, the California would already have closed out the May voucher. The voucher is due to California by the 10th day of the month prior. So how does this affect the cutover date?
The cutover date is actually the first month you're transmitting your parent voucher. So if your voucher you're trying to get subsidy for is for May, that will be your cutover date. So as most of you guys know on the line, when if you're an owner, you always transmit your vouchers a month before. So owners are required to transmit their tenant data, their voucher to you, the grantee, on the 10th business day of the month. So that would be April 10th for the May 1 voucher. You, as the PBCA, have 20 days to review that voucher at the owner level, go back for corrections if needed, and then roll up all of your children voucher onto one parent voucher. This is a very good question, actually. So once you do that process, it's important to, I would say, technically you have 20 days to, do your work and review. But the earlier you get it to HUD, I'd say the better, because you will have that system error getting generated. So that will give HUD enough time to make sure that you do get your payment on time so you can make payments to the owners.
Okay, thank you. Somebody who's listening asked whether we can turn some of these answers into a Q&A, a written Q&A. So maybe that's something that you guys at HUD can think a little bit about. I think that's it for questions right now.
Okay, perfect. Now, the next section we're going to go over is the concept that you are acting as the PBCA. So there are several important points that I want to make here. First, as the PBCA, you're acting on HUD's behalf. So you are responsible for ensuring the accuracy of the payment voucher request. And second, it's critical that the forms be completed correctly in order to ensure a proper audit trail, since we are dealing here with subsidy dollars. To receive payment, each property will transmit their child voucher and tenant certifications via IMAX to you. You and the properties will need to be familiar with the MAT guide, that's the Monthly Activity Transmission Guide. And as the grantee, you're responsible to review and approve all child-level vouchers from the owners. Next, you're going to create a parent-level voucher. The parent-level voucher rolls up all of the approved child vouchers. Then you will transmit one parent voucher and add the FORQ, which is the Field Office Accounting, as a miscellaneous adjustment for each RAC and child-level voucher. The RAC number, voucher month, and voucher year must be entered for each miscellaneous adjustment, and only one voucher per month per parent can be transmitted in tracks and paid through locks. So here we've done a print screen for y'all, which I think is helpful. It'll show you what we expect to see on the miscellaneous adjustment field. Basically, to the left, you're going to identify that it's an FORQ. In the comment field, we want to see the contract number, which is your child number that you're trying to voucher for, and the month and year. And then to the right of that, you're going to put the total amount for the subsidy for each child voucher. And the reasoning for the month and year is because you may have an owner who, is taking their time, that maybe is not familiar with tracks and doesn't transmit their voucher in time. Since only one voucher per month per parent can be transmitted, you probably don't want to hold up your payment to other vouchers because one owner is not transmitting on time. So it's critical for the paper trail process for a HUD to know which month subsidy we're paying subsidy for. So if there are two things you take away from this section as you're acting as a PBCA, they would be essentially first that you are acting as a PBCA, and second, each parent level voucher must include this FORQ adjustment for each rack and child level voucher. What will happen next is HUD will pay the grantee the aggregated amount at the parent level voucher. Once payment is received, you will pay each individual owner. Finally, these step-by-step instructions also mention approving annual rent adjustments and entering child level UPCS inspection results into IREMS. UPCS is the Uniform Physical Condition Standards. So the grantee will enter in the child UPCS inspection results in IREMS property history section of the risk management function in IREMS. The IREMS PBCA user guide will be helpful to you. And I just want to point out for those folks that are current PBCAs, this process is different than what you're used to. This process will be a manual data entry of what your inspection results are. The grantee will then also approve annual rent adjustments for each rack and child level contract. And for this part, we plan to provide additional instructions on updating IREMS about the rent adjustments in the future. And that actually completes the presentation. So do we have more questions from folks?
Not a question, but a comment. Jeff, I think he may be a HUD, working with HUD. He indicates that in the FORQ example, it only has the amount requested field filled. He says for the MAT guide, we are saying that the 8A be the site requested amount and 8B the amount the cooperative agreement is approving, the contract administrator is approving. Has there been a change? Do you want to bring that up, Stacy, the FORQ? Is Jeff, can Jeff be unmuted?
Jeff, if you would enter your audio PIN number on your phone, I can unmute you. And if you can't do that, you can feel free to expand on your question using the question box.
Yeah.
I can say, though, this is something we put together. We're not the voucher folks. So we're not deviating from what's currently done in the MAT guide. Whatever instructions are in the MAT guide, I suggest following that. Lanier, if he was on the line, he would certainly agree with that. We're not trying to change the MAT guide for this process as what's normally done for FORQs.
Okay. Jeff says his PIN is 90, Stacy. But while you're doing that, there's another question. Is the TRACS process manual like IREMS, or can a software like HDS be used for this program like it is for the PBCA? So I guess really the question is, are some of the contractors able to produce the voucher and the reports required?
Right. So the good question. There are several different softwares that you can use to transmit your vouchers. From what I understand in industry meetings, the software companies are gearing it toward more like an extra package that you have to pay for perhaps to be able to roll up your child vouchers at the parent level and get the aggregated amount for subsidy. So, short answer is if you're not going to go that route and pay the extra funds, then yes, it would be a manual process.
Thank you. A couple more written questions. What kind of annual rent adjustments are required? Is it similar to the AAF adjustments?
No, it's not the AAF adjustment. So within the NOFA and more also your application, you would have told us the type of rent adjustments you're going to be working with. Most of them are going to be OCAF adjustments, and we've also been coordinating with RD properties to accept budget-based rent adjustments. So depending what type of property you are, what you'll do is on the rack, it identifies the type of rent adjustment that you're approving for that owner. And then from there, that's how you would adjust the rents thereafter. There is another option for adjustments as approved by HUD. So before you execute the rack, If you are proposing some other methodology, then you will need to coordinate with program staff for approval.
Thank you. A couple, the questions keep coming. Is this subsidy considered a subset of Section 8 for review purposes?
For project-based Section 8, yes.
Okay. And so someone asked, which HUD will be reviewing the vouchers, HQS headquarters or the Chicago office?
It would be HUD headquarters.
Thank you. So another question, will the payment will be per parent per month instead of per property owner. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think I bet as soon as I say we have hit all the questions, we'll get another question. But I don't know if we were able to unmute Jed.
We weren't. We're having some technical issues, so he's going to continue to use the written box.
Okay, great. I haven't seen anything yet. Do we want to check and see if Lanier has joined? Sounds like he has not. Why don't we give it a second to see if anyone has any last-minute questions?
Sure, and I can just point out for the new folks on the line, the parent-child concept is new, so you may not know the questions you want to ask now, but certainly coordinate with your TA lead for any technical questions, and if it can't get resolved there, we have a great team here at headquarters for the tracks that have been doing awesome work getting our tracks workaround set up. So they've been very available to help with one-on-one technical assistance, especially for those that are not PBCAs. I wish you could hear it from Lanier, but he's told the previous set of grantees that he is willing to do more one-on-one hand-holding for those that are not PBCAs. So if you're not familiar with tracks or IREMs, or if you're a TCA and you need to figure out how to get set up as a PBCA, so to speak, the team here is very willing to help.
Mm-hmm. Well, plus, if he's not here, you can assign him anything, and he has to do it, right? Just kidding. We have a couple more questions that came on. A follow-up on the manual tracks voucher process. Is it correct to say that those manual vouchers are entered via secure systems linked to tracks?
Elisa, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, there's two ways to submit vouchers. If you're using a software package, that there is the web services option, which most of them, I think HGS was mentioned, most of them do have that option. Yes, if you're manually creating the voucher, you do have the option to log into secure systems and access IMAX that way and upload your files that way as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more questions came up. When payment is made to the grantee as a single lump sum, will the grantee receive any documentation indicating what child contracts are covered by the payment?
The documentation essentially is the parent voucher that you transmitted to HUD. So within the parent voucher, you itemize each RAC payment that you're trying to submit, and you basically tell HUD the amount of rental assistance for each RAC subsidy. So when we give you that lump sum,
is that voucher numbered, and is the deposit kind of linked with a number or not really?
Let me check just a sec.
Stacy, well, one of the folks wants to know, they liked it so much they're going to see the video again. When will the video be available on the web for watching? Will you be sending out a link shortly?
I will. So tomorrow you'll receive a link to the recording, and you'll also receive a link to the Prezi presentation, so you can view those at any time. And you'll get those by email tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And Katina's going to speak to that last question.
When you're submitting payments in locks, it creates a voucher for you, and it does have a number attached to it.
Does that answer that question?
I think that does. I'm guessing that, for many, many of the states the deposits are going into a single account, and so to be able to trace what belongs to the program. You know, some of these agencies probably have multiple sources of funds from HUD. So I imagine it's something related to that, and hopefully that person will do a follow-up if they have any other questions. With regard to the last question, I'm sure which one that was, that would mean that HUD would not be making changes to the vouchers. You're either going to approve or deny as they're submitted. Is that correct?
Well, that's a great question, but this goes back to, I'm going to flip it around back to you because you are acting as a PBCA. Technically, HUD is not even supposed to be reviewing any voucher. Because of this foreign concept with the parent-child relationship, we are going to be reviewing, just for quality control purposes, the first 3 paper vouchers of the child that you're trying to voucher for. But in a perfect world, if we had enough funding to get tracks where we wanted to, this system error would not generate. So HUD would automatically pay the grantee. So you, as a grantee, are acting as a PBCA, so it's very important that you approve, you know, review the amounts, make sure that they're the correct subsidy that should be paid. But big picture, HUD will just automatically be releasing payment after we get past that first 3 months.
Okay, thank you. So everyone's playing a very critical role here. Will there be any kind of compliance percentage calculations for the child level voucher?
Elisa, can you speak to that?
Not within tracks. Those won't be submitted directly to tracks if that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Anne can follow up. I imagine that it would have to go into tracks in order to do that kind of calculation, but maybe Anne can follow up because I'm not sure. Is it advisable to request a separate tracks mail ID from the one that the grantee uses for PBCA?
Elisa, that's you again.
Yeah, I think that's really up to the individual grantees. It's not necessary.
I'm not sure if this is Lisa, I'm not sure if I remember correctly or not. I think when the last time that question was asked, someone asked whether it might, I think the comment was, it might make it easier to sort through error messages if the 811 error messages came in to a separate box. I don't know, Lisa, do you think that's a reason?
Again, it's kind of up to the individual sites with how they want to parse it. If they prefer to have, you know, all of their tenant and voucher data from their PBCA side to come in from one tracks MID and from this program from another, it's kind of how they manage their work and how they want to review it, but it's not necessary from a system standpoint. Okay, thank you. I think there was one more I'm trying to, that I missed earlier. Will grantees have to submit a MAT 30 voucher file to receive the subsidy? Yes.
Lisa, that's you.
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought it was yes, but I'm not. I'm sure the MAT 30 is just a voucher, but I'm used to saying voucher.
Yes.
Okay.
Just checking. You know, going back to the comment about the FORQ, someone suggests that the contract administrator use box A for the amount the site had requested on their submitted voucher and box B for the amount that the contract administrator is actually paying. Just like with the PBCA contracts, I mean, there is a CA approved amount that's within, you know, if you have a CAID that they're required, there's certain CA fields that are required. And as Danielle mentioned, that's not changing in this case. Okay.
And what I would add too is, Stacy, before we email the Prezi out, let's get an updated print screen of how that voucher page should look according to the MAT guide. So Jed or Lisa or Lanier, if you're on the line, if you can just shoot us a PDF with an example of how it should look, and that way we can get you guys updated copies.
Great idea. The minute I say it, we'll have some more questions, but it looks like there aren't any other written questions. I don't know if any of the HUD headquarters folks on the line have additional comments they'd like to make.
No additional comments. Just want to reiterate for the new folks, don't feel intimidated if you don't, or if you're not familiar with the terminology that was used with the HUD Secure Systems. The session is recorded, so once you're ready to start transmitting your voucher, it'd be a good idea to listen up to the session again. You know, just learn a little bit more about the HUD systems, and also know that we are here at headquarters to help you with any, you know, one-on-one technical support needed. And that's all I have. So if there's nothing else, we appreciate you joining us and hope everybody has a great weekend.
I just want to point out there are a lot of comments saying thank you and great presentation. So nice job.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good day.